Historic loss last year when it polled below 50% and lost two more provinces, Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, both of which, of course, are now creating a headache, and that coming on the back of a Western Cape that they lost a long time ago. But someone who knows a lot, perhaps a lot more about ANC policies than anyone else is, of course, Jeff Radebe, who was, believe it or not, the ANC's head of policy for a total of 25 years. And this is familiar territory to you. When you look back at the evolution of ANC policy over the years, what do you point to as something that says we've actually moved over the past 30 or so years?
Well, we need to look at it in historic terms, because when we were founded way back in 1912, the ANC was really an organization that was characterized by constitutionalism as a method of fighting the regime, petitions, deportations, and so on. You'll recall even the first Secretary General, Solomon Blachier, they used to get into a steamship to London to beg the Queen and the King at that time to give them a slice of the cake. But over the years, the ANC became a mass organization, particularly with the formation of the Youth League in 1944, where mass action was characterized in the 50s when Chief Lutul was the president of the ANC. So we see the evolution of the ANC approach and policies has brought what the ANC is today. But when one looks at the past 30 years, I think the issue of a democratic constitution in 1996, which is in fact its DNA is found in the Freedom Charter, which is one of the basic policy documents of the ANC. We've come a long way since that time. The improvements of the quality of life of people, even though there are still many challenges that we are being faced with. So right now what is important is to ensure that we intensify the new form of struggle, and that is the economic emancipation of our people.
What do you say to someone who says, well, yeah, I hear that history and we're all hopeful and we thought it would really deliver the goods, but when you look at where the country is currently, all of that history amounts to almost nothing?
Not at all, not at all. In spite of the fact that we suffered a devastating loss nationally in the last provincial and national elections, as well as here in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. But you can see that there are steps that are being taken by the ANC to renew itself and also to put more vigor in ensuring that we bounce back from that loss in order to ensure that we deliver the historic mandate of the people, the total liberation of our people.
Where do you see that change? What can you point to?
Well, you can see even the political report of the president shows that there are some green shoots that are beginning to emerge. The mere fact that we have been moved from the grey listing is one indication that something good is beginning to happen. The mere fact that the credit rating has been upgraded for the first time in more than 20 years. These are indications, the convening of the G20 that has been very successful, and the new economy in terms of electric vehicles and other areas of critical minerals. These are the things that we're going to be seeing characterizing going to the future. Not forgetting the infrastructure investment program that was announced by the Minister of Finance, where we're going to be spending more than R1 trillion in the next 3 years building roads, railways, and all the necessary infrastructure to improve the quality of lives of our people.
And you reckon that will do the trick? In other words, it will bring you back to above 50%?
Yes, we are very confident in that, but it requires the determination not only of leaders in the NEC, but also on the ground, so that we are where the people are in the rural areas, in the townships, to deal decisively with corruptions or perceptions of corruption, crime. So all these things are put together. If we're singing from the same hymn book and act in terms of what is wrong, we can be able to turn the corner.
Mr. Jeff Radebe, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. But I want to bring into the conversation someone who here and now deals with policy within the African National Congress, and that's Phoebe Potgieter-Qubule. Jeff Radebe was head of policy for 25 years. And it's people like you who have, the baton was passed on to you. I'm dead sure that you will have done your own studies, you'll have done your own research. But what is it telling you about where you are and the state of the organization? Perhaps more importantly, what it is that South Africans want from the ANC?
Part of what the South African wants, let me start with that because that's what our mission is about. The concern about unemployment, service delivery, as well as the issues of corruption and crime. So those tend to be the top foremost issues that South Africans are concerned about. They're quite happy with how we're performing on health, education as well, surprisingly, because I think that access has expanded. More than 800,000 students are supported through NSFAS in universities and TVET College, so I think that speaks to that. But the economy, this is what it is about. And then, of course, ANC Renewal. So let me start. I'm sure Comrade Jeff spoke about the economy. So let me focus on the ANC Renewal. We have just completed before the NGC, and we will report it as part of the midterm, what we call a branch functionality barometer. And what it does is to ask branches, besides having 100 members, and having gone to conference 2 years ago or within 2 years, what do you do in the community with regards to addressing issues of service delivery, getting your ward councillor to come in on a monthly basis, have community meetings? What are you doing to reach out to sectors like children, child-headed households, or older people who don't have access to grants? And that tells us an interesting story about where our branches are at. There are some that's doing well. And if you have what we call an activist ANC branch, it directly translates into our voting numbers. Just to use the example, we have these annual awards for branches, and there were 3 branches that last year were runner-up. The one of them, in a province where we went down to about 75%, they got 85% in their ward. Because they're active in the community, they look after, what's happening in the schools, what's happening with the clinics, etc. So the focus of this NGC is really on those practical issues. How do you make sure that you have an ANC branch that's activist?
So tell us how. How do you make it? Because the ANC has been saying this, over the years. You were able to identify, the problems. But isn't the question what it is that you're doing about your cadres weren't doing what the people on the ground say is what you should be doing?
So we've introduced since National Conference, and this is why this is called a midterm review, we've introduced 3 things. The first one is the foundation course, ANC foundation course. Comrade Makura reported to the NEC 126,000 out of the 500,000 ANC members in good standing have gone through it. And what it does is the foundation course focus on what's the mission of the ANC, our aims and objective, what are the country we live in, the constitution, what are the values of the ANC. So that's the one. And it's compulsory for all delegates to the NGC that if you haven't gone through the foundation course, you shouldn't be a delegate here. So that's the first one. The second one is that we've introduced the branch functionality barometer that I talk about. We've piloted it. It's now fully rolled out. And this is why we're able to give a sense about the profile of an ANC branch and what it does. The third thing that we've introduced over the last, and I think that's why we're beginning to see the needle turn, is a guideline on an activist branch. So very simple. So what do you need to do to qualify as an activist ANC branch? You must have a program of action. You must hold your ward councillor accountable. The ward councillor, you as a BC must ensure that the ward councillor organize a community meeting every day. As a branch, you must make sure that you interact with the sports organizations and the faith-based organizations, NPOs, CPOs, etc. So those things have been introduced over the last 3 years since our national conference. The issue about organizational change is that you need to build a critical mass of good practice, and that's what this NGC shows we're beginning to do. And similarly on the issues of ethics. One of the 17 commissions that we have at this NGC focuses on the issue of ethics and the values of the ANC. Maybe 5 years ago, if you say we need to have a commission on ethics, people would say, no, we'll deal with it as part of the governance commission or the organizational commission. It wasn't even a debate that we have to have a commission on ethics, on the war on corruption, so that we have very specific things that we need to take forward and act on. What makes this NGC different is the fact that we've also had quite a lot of widespread discussions within ANC structures, and they've come up with recommendations, very concrete recommendations. So, for example, branches have discussed it, regional structures and the PGCs. The Veterans League, for example, because we say we must raise the bar of leadership, said instead of having representative delegates come to a conference and elect leaders, the NEC, we should have direct elections. Every ANC member should have the right to vote for an ANC leader in the NEC. Now, I think that those practical things is part of that shift that we're beginning to see. And I think that this NGC shows a tipping point in terms of organizational renewal.
Just to conclude, here's something that's rather interesting for me, that having identified all the problems you have and how to deal with them, and as you are saying, that you've started seeing changes where with your branches and other structures that have started doing the right things that you believe are what the people want. I know there's issues with polls in this country, generally speaking, but they have been able to capture the essence of trends over the years. And virtually everyone that has come through in the recent past has actually or suggests a further deterioration or decline on your part. How do you then explain that?
In our view, I mean, opinion polls are indication of a particular direction. And therefore, it provides us with data to be able to say that you have to do something. In the same way, if a company's shares plummeted, they have to do something. They can't say, oh, we're going to go further down. We must just sit back and fold our arms. This conference, and the President has raised it, the issue will say it in the midterm report as well, is that the ANC is at a renew or perish moment. And I think that all the delegates realize that this is what the poll's saying. We have to listen to them, and we need to make sure that we move towards a different directory on the economy, on the issues of service delivery, on the issues of corruption, but also on the issues of ANC renewal. And indeed, it is a renew or perish moment for us, and we're confident that we will take the route of renewal. For South Africa to lose an institution like the African National Congress would be a tragedy, because it represents the aspirations of millions of people for transformation, for uhuru, economically, socially, in every single aspect of society. And we cannot betray that expectation from South Africans.
Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The ANC's head of policy and research. Renew or perish, she says, and that is what this particular National General Council of the ANC is going to take seriously. But will they? Well, we shall see at the end of the 4-day conference as to whether indeed it is something that they will have taken as seriously as Phoebe Potgieter-Gubule says they do.